This is the Press Play Podcast, brought to you by Real Resilience.
Hello and welcome to Press Play, the podcast from Real Resilience, dedicated to all things tape and tape recording. My name is Ian Betson, and I welcome you to the first episode of the new year. I hope the forthcoming 12 months brings everything you hope for in the world of tape and tape machines. Late last year saw me accept work on a number of clients' machines for the next few weeks, from consumer models by Grundig and Telefunkens to the big studio stuff by Studer and MCI. Now, I read an interesting article in the December edition of the UK's Hi-Fi and Record Review magazine about the resurgence of the tape format. If you want to read it, I've put a PDF copy of it in the download section of the Real Resilience website. Of particular note were the prices of the machines and the cost to get them serviced. Now, overall, I think the figures mentioned were pretty accurate. We all know that the asking prices of any machine has increased. You only have to look on the auction sites to realise that. But I'm starting to find as well that owners are becoming more attuned to what it costs to bring a machine back from the dead, or even just back to something approaching the manufacturer's spec. I'm afraid we all have our costs. We all need our equipment outlay. We buy our line-up tapes and all those other kind of things. And I'm afraid we still have to make a living, and that has to be reflected in the price that service engineers charge. And I'm glad that this magazine article did reflect that. I'm also starting to see an increase in the availability and range of replacement or augmented parts for original machines. Not just the standard pinch rollers that we all need, but things such as control cards, exterior panels, and the internal mechanisms. It's a market that's starting to blossom. In further episodes over the forthcoming year, I hope to speak to some of the people creating these products, because I think it will make an interesting podcast. So overall, a positive start to the year in terms of the audio format we all love. Now, this podcast leads on from the previous one with my visit to Sound Mastering in London. In part one, I spoke to Nick Robbins, he's a senior mastering engineer at the company, about the transfer process. And then Nick brought his colleague Graham Sharp into the conversation, and we moved more on to tape machines and other formats, as you'll hear.
Hello Graham, this is Ian.
Hello Graham, Ian Betson. Graham works on the initial transfer process from the original format, be it vinyl or tape, copying it to the editor for subsequent mastering. It's him I deal with principally in the support of their tape machines. Graham has a major concern in that using a 35-plus-year-old tape machine as a workhorse is a little bit like using a vintage car as a taxi, so his concern is keeping them running and getting access to replacement machines.
How often do these come up?
They're like buses. A810s are very desirable for the simple reason that they're small size. People will seek those out. A807s as well. But of course, they've got various speed on them, which is handy for you, and that's whereas the A80 hasn't.
Actually, generally speaking, we would never vary speed at source unless the box told us to. Well, because you can't actually guarantee that you'll get it exactly the way they intended. So we would always vary speed after the event. So the transfer is the transfer, and it's as simple as we can make it in the sense of we don't fiddle about too much. And as I said, I've got one right now actually. I did a cassette transfer for a guy who's been out of the business for years, but he had a band in the 70s, and he's found a live recording that they did, and he wanted to just hear it, and so I did a transfer. And when he got it home, he said, it's running slow. What can we do? Do we need to transfer it again?
Sure, is your cassette's deck's not running fast?
Well, no, it's possible. But but which one?
Which one?
That's the issue. Which one?
Yeah.
And actually, it doesn't matter because once you've got it in the digital domain, and you're not talking about something that's really high quality here. It's a cassette of a live recording. It's pretty ropey. But that's not
taken
the point.
Taken off the front of house desk, probably.
Actually, I don't think it is.
Really?
I think it's on a mic.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Right.
I don't think it's not good enough to be actually off. I mean, it's good enough to hear what they're doing, and it's quite interesting if you're interested in that particular artist, if you like. But it was more the fact that he's the drummer on it, and he hadn't heard it for 40 years, so he wanted to know what was on it.
Well, he wouldn't have heard it if he was the drummer. Anyway. As this A810, I remember that's the one that's got the attention roller removed on the right hand side because it's a BBC machine, isn't it?
Yes.
They took that away for editing. Oh, you got this A807 here as well.
That's our half-inch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it has half-inch. Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing because one of our clients he took a look at this and he said, "Can you make it a 4-track?" I said, well, it's got the amplifier.
Yeah, it depends what the guts are inside.
Indeed. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
but he was even more interested in the possibility of making it a 3-track.
Oh dear.
Yeah, because in fact they've got a whole batch of 3 tracks.
Well, they must have been, what were they? Ampex?
1950s.
Ampex produced a 3-track, didn't they?
Yes, they must have done. Well, no, 3-track was quite a common format, actually, in the 60s,
yeah. Of course, I would call that. But yeah, I mean, we're looking at AHS7 here with the 4 VU meter overbridge. Interestingly, you've got the padding on the front here. That shows that machine hasn't been used that much. That usually gets lacerated, hacked to bits. It's a lovely looking AHS7.
Yeah, no, it is actually. It's a gorgeous machine. Yeah, it's really nice.
It's our half-inch. Half-inch, which before was
the Ampex.
This one's actually got 1/4-inch guides and stuff on it.
We've got half-inch headlock.
Sure. One of my clients, he's got an A800 and 2 A820s, which he bought with less than 900 hours on them from the BBC at outside broadcast department. I probably worked on those things. He paid in 2001 £8,000 for the both of them.
Wow!
Those machines are probably worth, as they stand, 12,000 each.
And the
900 hours on each.
Nick has been looking for an 820.
I'd love an
820.
They're silly money,
exactly,
particularly in America.
From Studas, we moved on to Ampex, a maker machine that I admit I don't know too much about. But still, this is the great thing about OpenReel. They all basically do the same thing. Move tape across a set of record and replay heads to impart audio into or reproduce audio from that tape. The method in how they achieve that just differs from make to make. So once you have the basics understood, applying the theory is easy. Well, let's have a look now. We've got a couple of Ampexes, haven't we?
We've got 2.
I'm showing my ignorance of Ampex here. What model is it? ACR 100. All right.
But it's actually a 102 because they were listed as 102s, 108s, 116s, etc., depending on what you have, or 104s even.
I've heard. I mean, again, you might know from the mastering side here that people say, this produces an American sound. I don't know how true that is.
Well, when I first, I never was familiar with the Ampex at all until I came here. And when I started doing copying, I thought, oh my gosh, this is like really, compared with the studio, it was and actually going back to the American idea is maybe some more brasher sound. It's like really upfront.
It's a fatter sound.
It's a fatter sound, yeah.
Maybe it's got sort of a response curve with a bit of bass and a bit of top and a hammock in the middle.
No, not according to the test tape.
Okay.
No, right. According to the test tape, it's actually very flat response. Really? Actually,
but it
as you would expect from a professional machine.
Yeah.
But somehow it feels. It. I don't know how to put this really, but it feels slightly more analogy.
Really?
Yeah, whatever that means. than playing it on a Studer. Funnily enough, you get the impression when you play it on. Say you were playing the same tape on these 2 machines, you would get the impression that the Studer was rock solid and inflexible. The Ampex is sort of wanders about a bit and brings something to the table that wasn't perhaps there.
What kind of distortion?
Indeed, exactly. And it for a lot of things it does. The Ampex does have a gorgeous sound.
I was only reflecting on the Ampex, and it's an American machine, but of course, actually, it came out of the Second World War.
Yes.
When American soldiers are digging out, how Hitler made these beautiful recordings of orchestras, and broadcast them. And anyway, they then found, after Germany was defeated, I think one of them actually found these German machines, which presumably were maybe Bassev, I'm not sure. But anyway, basically, as far as I can remember, obviously they couldn't get the machine shipped back whole to the States, so basically he disassembled it completely, put it in post bags, all the bits and pieces in the post bag, and when it got to America they put it back together again. But I think from that came the basis of Ampex.
And of course we've got Bing Crosby to thank.
Bing Crosby
to thank for it, really, haven't we?
I'm just trying to think of the time scale on all of this, but obviously it's in late 40s.
Yeah.
But so in a kind of way, the Ampex is based on
the European, the German sound. Yes. Incidentally, if you don't know the story behind Bing Crosby, the radio stations he was putting the Bing Crosby show out were insisting that he did it live to maintain the quality, and vinyl, or the director cutting to vinyl, wasn't given the quality that the station desired. So he then heard about the start of Ampex and the quality you could get off quarter-inch tape machines, and put money into Ampex, didn't he, to help them develop the machine. I think he bought shares in the thing. He certainly put $50,000 or so dollars, I think, a lot of money into them. And almost cornered the market in quarter-inch tape machines in America, so he could distribute his programs to radio stations across America, so allowing for their time differences, and those radio stations could play his program in quality. So we've got Bing Crosby to thank for tape machine development.
I mean, as I said, until I came here, I've not really been familiar with Ampex at all, because like we were saying, in the studio, it was always Studer.
It's always Studer.
I don't know what the backup was for Ampex at all, but we had FWO Bausch, who were incredibly helpful.
Were they the UK distributor for Studer?
And if anything went wrong, what's the
Werner, go-to guy whenever they had any problems, and he would turn up.
He came down a couple of times.
More than a couple, actually.
I mean,
we had that many problems.
No, Bausch were preeminent. I mean, in the UK. I mean, for Studer to say, I had no UK presence because they had Bausch to do all the work for them.
Press Play, the Real Resilience podcast, dedicated to all things reel-to-reel.
To recap, if you're not familiar, FWO Bausch were appointed by Studer as a principal support provider for their products in the UK. Check a Studer or Revox manual for international distributors, and you'll see that Studer set up support in many countries, but in the UK, such was the standing of Bausch that they didn't go to that effort. It was all over to them. Bausch not only sold the machines and supported them, but they also undertook approved modifications as well, mainly at the behest of the BBC. And its maximum usage, the BBC had well over 1,500 tape machines from Studer and other manufacturers in service, so they held considerable clout as a customer. As part of their studio operations, they would request modifications to standard products, and in the case of tape machines, this could be internal audio and control boards, through to transport panels, and as you'll hear me mention, even the removal of transport rollers to an A810 in order to ease editing. Unfortunately, although the Bausch documentation was excellent, because it was bespoke, little of it survives. ICX BBC tape machines still come up on auction sites all over the world, and some I can see have been modified. Also, I read requests on forums for information about non-Studer fader panels or internal boards that, although they look like original manufacturer product, have Bausch etched onto them. Even I, with my BBC background, although I recognise why that mod was made or why a particular board is present, cannot recall how it functioned or the mods that were made to the original machine to interface it. Unfortunately, FWO Bausch ceased trading in the mid-1990s, possibly due to the downturn in the use of tape for professional use, so we can't go back to them to ask the questions about how a particular board worked with a particular machine. We're really a bit on our own here. If you have a Studer that's an ex-BBC machine, and you'll probably know it because it's either in a bespoke trolley or will have BBC stickers stuck all over it, and it's most probably a B67 Mark 1 or 2, an A80, A807 Mark 1 or 2, or an A810, and it'll have a fader panel on the front or connections on the rear labelled Q or PFL etc., it will probably have a Bausch mod in it. If you need more info on what it does, I will be happy to help. So if you drop me a line via the submission form on the Real Resilience website, we'll see what we can do.
Find Real Resilience on the web at realresilience.co.uk and on our Facebook page, Real Resilience.
Moving away from tape, but still in the analogue domain, Sound Mastering showed me an interesting turntable they used to transcribe vinyl and then a studio recording format that was a precursor to tape. You mentioned the pink triangle turntable a while ago. Can we see that and the actual where it all comes from?
You can see my colleague.
All starts at the beginning.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh wow! So we're looking at this is a custom-built pink triangle turntable, is it with a 14-inch platter?
And with the extra long SME.
SME arm. Yeah. God.
It's been a workhorse actually for over 20 years, hasn't it? Yeah. I mean, I think. Yeah, when I first came here, that was when this was new. And it has the occasional problems in cold temperatures with speed. You have to wait half an hour when you switch it on in the morning sometimes for it to warm.
It's getting a bit ancient, but it warms through.
Yeah.
I love it. It's an opaque piece of, what was that, Perspex, is it?
It is a big chunk of Perspex.
Yeah,
that's right. Oh. And it also has a very special adaptation.
Yeah, in the middle.
Which is you can take the spindle out to a much thinner spindle.
Oh, right.
If you've got an off-centered disc.
Ah,
it saves you having to carve the middle out of an off-centered disc.
Well, then you can screw it.
Yes.
You lock it down again.
Yeah, you lock it lock it down.
Either
with
that one is that.
Yeah.
Screw thread in the bottom of it.
Wow. Goes around to make a sound.
It does indeed.
Fascinating. Oh, we've got some more. Graham is holding a. What is this, Graham?
This is a lacquer or acetate.
Yeah.
Probably from the 1950s.
Yeah.
Or it might even be 1940s.
14-inch diameter.
And this would have been what they recorded directly onto.
Right.
This is late 40s, actually.
Right. So from this, they'd make the stamper, would they?
No. What they would then do, having this is a session tape, effectively.
Yeah.
It's probably got 3 of the same song on it. And you can see full starts here.
Oh, yes.
Having got the recording that they want, whichever one it is, they would then play this back and recut it onto a smaller lacquer to actually make the final cutting master. Oh, wow. So this is a session session lacquer.
Right. And so you've got about 3 tracks, and you said the full starts are the very small bands.
Yeah, that's right. The full start.
What is it on there? Do you know what music? It's only single-sided as well, isn't it?
It's from King Records.
Oh, right.
They do
R&B or blues.
And country. This is actually country.
All right. That's a shame, country music.
Well, no, it isn't. It's growing in popularity.
Very true.
But again, when I first, put this on and heard this.
You're waggling it around. Oh, you snap it in half. It's pretty soft.
They're not. It's aluminium, so it's
aluminium.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
It's a coating on aluminium plate.
Oh, I see. Right.
And of course, as Nick's saying, they're session discs. So the band's playing fully live, and they're not going to be any overdubs. And I always remember, it's the modern catalogue with all the R&B stuff.
They're still doing this nowadays, cutting direct.
Cutting
directed to line off. Yeah, same process. Yeah.
Put that on. Just pin me to the wall. It's just
you're there
because you're getting the performance.
Yes,
you're getting the full performance with all the instruments and the sound. I mean,
they're amazing. They're usually mono, of course.
Yes,
in fact, they're always mono until you get into the late 50s.
Apart from obviously the.
Yeah, we've the signal to noise has improved, hasn't it? But it's still,
But in terms of the actual clarity and quality of the sound.
So would you master from those?
Yes,
you would. You would put that on the turntable. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
On that deck.
On that deck.
Transfer into the digital domain, gets archived, and then
it goes to me.
Finally, we went back to tape and an unusual Studer that was used in vinyl mastering.
And then
a couple of DAT machines.
Here is the carcass of an A80.
Studer A80, yeah.
And we use this for one specific purpose. And that is if we get tapes in that are in the German format on...
Just taking the cover off it here.
That have those.
Oh, right. I see. He's shown you the tape path. This is new and it's got
this is
loads of different spoolers.
Yeah, well, that's because this was a cutting machine.
Oh, right.
And so these are the delay paths.
Yeah.
For all the different speeds.
Oh, right.
So you would wind the tape round here.
Yeah.
And then it would go up round there, or up round there, or up round there, depending on what you were doing. So
we're looking at
33, 45.
Oh, I see. We're looking at a Studer A80, but it's got loads of extra tension rollers that have been screwed in at different points. It reminds me of the tape path a little bit of a Technics 1500, with the kind of U path.
Yes.
But as well as it running the normal conventional route, I should say, through the tension arms and the rollers, it then goes off in all these different places.
Yeah, you can see, for example, it would have gone round that roller, round that roller, right the way round here, and back in through there. For 33, whatever that says.
But why would they have a longer path on it?
Because you had 2 heads, both in use, and so what would happen is the tape would come around here, it would hit this head first.
Just after the first large roller on the left-hand side,
That information would be sent to the lathe, and then the lathe would... It's pre-delay.
Oh, I see.
So the lathe knows what's coming.
Oh,
because
right.
then it goes all the way around here, and
so
then
it
comes
can
into
adjust
this
the gain and everything.
X amount of time later.
Yeah.
And so it knows what real estate it needs that's coming.
Ah, right, I understand it.
Yeah, these days.
That's fascinating. I've seen a 3-spool version of an A80, which is basically three spooling motors next to each other. But they made the A80, I mean, ran cassette tapes, so you could master on it, all sorts of different formats. I've never seen a machine like that.
But from the early 1980s, a lot of the cutting rooms substituted digital delay lines instead.
So that's it for this podcast. Much thanks to Graham and Nick at Sound Mastering in London, not only for their time, but also for the semi-Revox A700 they gave me. It will be a good source of donor parts, so thanks for that. The next podcast will see us talking about pre-recorded tapes. In the meantime, keep your tape and tape machine addiction fed by taking a look at the Real Resilience website at realresilience.co.uk and the Facebook page Real Resilience. There's lots of info in there and the machines I'm working on and info to download too. Finally, this is where I need your help. I'm looking into the viability of running a workshop this year at my place in Derbyshire on tape machine lineup and mechanics. I need to do some market research to see what the demand's like, so if you could drop me a line to register your interest, probably via a query submission form on the website or as a PM on Facebook, that would really be appreciated. So that's it for this episode of Press Play, the podcast from Real Resilience, dedicated to all things tape and tape recorder.
Find Real Resilience on the web at realresilience.co.uk and on our Facebook page, Real Resilience.
Until the next time, best wishes for the coming year and keep it real. Right, well, thank you, Nick. Thank you very much. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I've realised I've taken up way too much of time. The recorder's been running for just under 2 hours now, so but it's been great. Thank you very, very much.
One last thing I wanted to show you.
Oh, Ampex test tape it looks like a film tin it's in, isn't it? Yeah. Gosh.
I think
it's a half inch. Is that half inch?
It is a half inch.
Yeah.
And it's accidentally got itself into somebody else's archive. It's from Trident Studios.
Oh, right.
Probably in the early 70s. And
but it is a test tape. It's not. It's not.
I'm almost certain it is. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't put it on the machine yet.
So that's something for the A807, is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Although we do have more modern ones. But I just thought it was interesting that the test tapes came, as you say, in these sort of film
cans.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't have thought would be. They're not going to stop any magnetic.
No, it's not really. Make it difficult to put them back.
Because you're struggling to get the lid on.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.